Hello everyone, welcome to another video discussion. The focus of this video is the nature and importance of communication for work purposes and its application in various aspects such as business, health, education, science, and social media. But in this video discussion, my only focus is on the application of communication for work purposes to the business setting. Before anything else, let us have first the definitions and descriptions of communication for work purpose. Work communication is the procedural manner of giving and exchanging both ideas and information, also both verbal and nonverbal between one person or group and another person or group within an organization. So when you say work communication, obviously, this is the type of communication that is happening within an organization and is intended for work purposes only. Work communication is immensely significant for various organizations because through this, efficiency and productivity tend to increase. So if there is effective work communication in the work setting, then productivity could really be achieved. Communication in the workplace plays a significant role in companies to become efficient and productive. And employers who love to spend time and energy in creating open communication lines will quickly produce trust among employees, resulting in productivity, performance, and overall self-esteem. Now, in this video discussion, I shall also be talking about the very significance of open communication lines. How can it help to build better relationships within an organization? An employee can also experience increased morale, productivity, and commitment if he or she can communicate up and down a company's communication chain. That means if there exists a healthy communication, not only at the level of you being a substituent or a member of the organization, but also at the higher level where you get to communicate effectively with the higher ups, then there is now this healthy communication among members and the organization. Employees who communicate effectively with his or her colleagues, managers, and customers continue to be valuable assets to a company. That's true. On the other hand, poor communication in the workplace will unsurprisingly lead someone to non-motivated working staff that can begin to question his or her confidence in his or her skills and organization. This is now poses the very importance of communication in the work setting. Not only that, it provides everyone the proper venue to share their ideas and thoughts, but also it allows everyone to share their sentiments, most especially on important organizational issues or matters. Now, there are 5 reasons why communication in the workplace are important to reckon. First one is innovation. This will manifest when employees may have the opportunities to express themselves openly, their ideas, without the fear of being ridiculed or retaliated. Thus, innovation depends highly on this, and an organization that encourages communication is more likely to be advanced. So, if there is effective communication in the workplace, then there could also be innovation that can be sparked within the minds of the employees. If effective communication is highly evident in the organization, well, people most likely will have the opportunity to innovate something. Let's say in a certain department, if everyone is given the chance to speak up their ideas, then innovation will most be likely the result. So, for example, if there are planning sessions and then everyone is given the chance to speak or share their thoughts, innovation can be achieved. Second one is growth. Communication can be seen internally and externally. By associating himself or herself internally and by establishing strong communication lines, he or she ensures the consistency of the externally delivered message. Each growth project is based on solid communication and the fact that all internal or external stakeholders are on the same page. Now, the growth being talked about here is in the context of business. A company or an organization will never grow if employees and higher ups are not given the opportunity to discuss important things about the progress of the company. If that is the case, then solid communication must take place. If there is solid communication already with an organization, that means there could also be an easy growth not only for the success of the project implementation, but also for the company and as well as the employees. Effective communication. If those in executive or administrative positions are strong communicators, there's no single reason why they can't better manage their teams. Because if you have good communication skills, then you know how to become a good or effective leader as well. When you are a strong communicator, it is much simpler and easier for you to delegate activities, manage conflicts, motivate, and build relationships. Now, that is one benefit of being a good communicator. Because if you already know how to deal well with different issues within an organization or within a department or a team, then your strong communication skills can help you actually mitigate further issues from arising or from getting worse. And conflicts could be easily managed as well. And motivating also the employees would come easy. And then strong communication channels are indeed very essential. Let us remember that one. Another thing is team building. The making of effective teams requires communication, understanding, and mutual cooperation. She would be effective in building effective teams by employing strategies that are effective, such as those listed below, to improve communication. Obviously, this will increase the determination and satisfaction of employees because there is good communication happening within the group or the organization. That means everyone in the team feels valued. And once they feel valued, there comes innovation and also the liberty or the opportunity that is given to each one of the members so that they can freely share their thoughts and ideas about a certain matter or, for example, to be specific, a project. Giving a voice to all. When employees have the voice to be listened to by top management, this will give him or her assurance of being confident and satisfied. This one is very, very important in a work setting. If everyone is given the voice to speak, then that means everyone will feel valued. To voice out his or her precious ideas, opinions, and suggestions, or even complaints, there must be consolidated communication lines. Consolidated communication lines will give wondrous opportunities for everyone to communicate freely with his or her colleagues, peers, and superiors at any level. For example, in a corporation, an employee and interdepartmental survey, which is conducted every year and which tries to implement at least 70% of the changes or recommendations by the employees after they have answered the corporation and employee interdepartmental survey. Now, through this survey, the company could also know the needs, the sentiments, and as well as the problems or the issues experienced by the employees. It may be an indirect way, but this could also be an effective platform so that employees can be given the voice to share whatever their thoughts or emotions are. And that is very vital in a corporate or work setting. Now, there are also effective ways on how you can improve the communication in your workplace. First one is to include everyone. This one is to give assurance or guarantee that the communication lines are always open. Always search and actively update and promote progress reports and project updates. This will also benefit remote personnel. When you say including everyone, that means mainstreaming everyone in the planning or decision-making stage. That is by asking the thoughts, opinions, or the ideas, or the innovative or creative ideas or suggestions of your peers within the company. Through this, not only that they will feel valued, they will also feel that their ideas are very much important to the accomplishment of the set goals or objectives for a specific project or an organization. Second one is to listen and show empathy. Communication is a two-way process where one speaks while the other listens or vice versa. If he or she doesn't listen to encourage dialogue with the other party, no job or person can survive for a long time. This means listening shows respect and allows someone to become familiar with the extraordinary problems that he or she may have to solve as an employer. If you want to become effective communicators in a work setting, you have to be good listeners as well. By good listening, I mean you need to empathize with the needs, the emotions of the people speaking. Okay? Through this, you are also valuing the emotions or the feelings of that person. So you need to empathize also because let us always remember that since communication is a two-way process, we also need to give our feedback. And our feedback doesn't need to be by words, okay, or by statements. They may also show through sincerity or active listening. You also need to define objectives and expectations. Managers should provide clear, manageable, and achievable goals for teams and individuals that define what is exactly required for a particular project, and that all of the team is aware of the objectives of the project, the department, and the workplace as a whole. In doing this will also boost the confidence and potentials of workers or employees. Now, it's very important to be engaged in goal setting. Goal setting will allow you to be systematic with the things that you need to achieve for a specific project or program in your company. Okay, so you have to clearly define objectives and expectations. And if you are the leader or the higher up, you also need to effectively define these objectives and expectations to your employees so that they will also be clarified about what need to be achieved given a specific period. Okay? You also need to send your message clearly. This is in relation to the preceding item. You have to make sure that your intended message is clear, accessible, and most of all, understandable to the desired audience. To do this, it is very important that you speak clearly and respectfully. Okay? You need to be very polite with the words and actions that you show. In other words, to transmit the message clearly without understanding or fault, this is the very substance of sending your message clearly. Okay? Next one is to choose your medium carefully. Now, it's also very important that you know how to choose your medium carefully when communicating. Remember that your channel or your medium will also affect the clarity of the message. And also, it will somehow impact how the recipient receives the message. After the message was made, he or she needs to make sure if it's in the best possible format or at his or her most convenient. Nobody can deny the fact that face-to-face communication is the best way to build trust with employees. It is not always a choice. Giving him or her ample time to think and decide if the given information or data on a printed copy works better than an email or whether a general note is satisfactory. That means the way you communicate, for example, if it's either oral or written. You also need to decide on that carefully so that your medium or way of channeling the message could become effective on the end of the one who will be receiving the said message. Okay? Now let's talk about in context, communicating effectively for business. Now we all know that communication plays a very important role in the business setting. There is no business that does not, I think, value communication, because wherever you look at whatever angle it is to be perceived, communication plays an integral role in the business world. Effective communication is a vital tool for any business owner. Your success at getting your point across can be the difference between sealing a deal and missing out on a potential opportunity. For example, if your company is engaged in closing deals with other companies, not only here in the Philippines, but also abroad. Now, this could be one good opportunity where effective communication should play a significant role. Okay? You should also be able to clearly explain company policies to customers and clients and answer their questions about your products or services. Now, it is also very crucial to communicate effectively in negotiations to ensure you achieve your goals. So that is now where healthy discussions about certain business matters will arise. Communication is also important within the business. Effective communication can help to foster a good working relationship between you and your staff, which can in turn improve morale and efficiency. Now, if you're the boss of your own company, having good relationships with your employees or your staff will also benefit you, not only the organization. Because if your members of the company, of your staff or your employees have high morale, that means they have so much motivation and eagerness to achieve the company goals. Success in any conversation is likely to be achieved through both parties listening to and understanding each other. Practice the following skills in any business situation where you can communicate with others. So these are the key communication skills that you need to have. First one is active listening. Passive listeners most likely do not empathize with the speakers. That means you are not wearing, if you are a passive listener, you are not wearing the shoes of the one speaking to you. Now, if you are the speaker and then your listener is a passive listener, what will you feel? Do you think your ideas are valued? Definitely no, because passive listening is what is being exhibited during the communicative event. So that means if you want to become an effective communicator, you need to be an active listener as well. Okay, so how do you become an active listener? Perhaps you give feedback. Okay, giving pieces of feedback will be the best way for you to show that you are really an active listener during the communication event. Okay, second one is to understand nonverbal signals. Now, in the corporate world, it's also very important that we be very keen with these nonverbal signals. For example, when we close a deal with another company, we also need to interpret facial gestures or facial expressions because somehow they mean something. Okay, what if you explain the contents of the deal or the contract, and then the person whom you are communicating with portrays different facial expressions which you believe could be something suggestive of perhaps negative thoughts or negation about the contents of the deal? So if you are a keen observer of the different facial expressions portrayed by that person, then most likely you can interpret that that person is suggesting something. Okay? It's also very important to maintain eye contact because it's in eye contact that you get to channel your message more effectively. You also need to be very assertive. Well, this is specifically true in the business world. Okay? If you want to have high marketability of your own business, then you need to be assertive in terms of the products or the services that you are offering. Okay? You also need to be mindful of people's individual space. This is very important. You respect people's space when speaking, most especially if it's for professional purposes, then there has to be that professional distance between you and the person you are communicating with. And also, you need to respect the privacy of your clientele. Okay, that's very important. You also need to use positive body language. So avoid negative facial expressions, which can also affect your business. Okay? For example, if you are an employee in a company and then you have this customer, although we sometimes believe that customers are always right, there are really moments when customers are seemingly acting inappropriately already in a given situation. If that's the case, we as employees cannot really avoid instances when we portray negative facial expressions. As much as we want to show to that person that we are already annoyed or irritated, we need to keep our composure because that is how we establish good customer service. Okay? So if that is the case, we always need to portray positive body language despite what's happening around us. And then it's also very important that we know how to deal with different points of view. Because in a workplace or in an organization, people are very unique. They are unique in terms of characteristics, innovativeness, and ideas. So you need to be open-minded as well that these people will contribute something to whatever you have initially planned. Okay, it's either for the benefit, okay, for the success or the failure of your proposal. But it's up to you as to how you will welcome these different points of views and try to filter them so that you get to choose only those that are highly fitted to what you actually need. Okay? Personal awareness skills that help you with communication may include first one, understanding the benefits of a positive attitude. Because if you are this negative person all the time, then most likely people will not fall in love with you as a businessman or an entrepreneur. So it's very important that you know how to understand the benefits of having this positive attitude because at the end of the day, your positive attitude will really help you be successful in your line of work or in business. You also need to have awareness of how others perceive you. Well, it is true that sometimes we should not think about how people see us or perceive us. In the business setting, it's a different story. Our image also reflects our reputation. And once our reputation as an individual is tarnished, then most likely it will have a ripple to our business. So we have to be very careful also with how we project ourselves to other people. Self-confidence is also important. For example, when you sell or market a product, okay, and if you're not confident enough in marketing it, then most likely your prospect clients will not believe you that that product or service will really be effective once they use it or once they avail of it. So you need to be self-confident so that you are also projecting confidence not only in yourself but also for the product or the program or the services that you are marketing. Presentation is also very important. So you need to dress appropriately for different occasions, most especially in the business setting. Now, it also helps to consider the circumstances surrounding your communication, such as the situational and cultural context. The situation is very important as well because what if you communicate in this particular physical environment? So, what effect does it have to the actual communicative event? Or the cultural context as well. Let's say you're a Filipino and then you're communicating with a Westerner. Okay, remember that each country is unique in terms of business ethics and also other things being observed when dealing with business. So you have to expect also that there could be slight cultural differences. Now, verbal communication can bring great rewards to your organization when carried out successfully, but it can also be hazardous to your business when approached the wrong way. This is very true. Remember that one slight difference with how you manage yourself given the situation could definitely cause a big impact to your business. Now, the words you use are important, but equally important is the way you express them. So it's very important as well how you express the words properly to the people around you and to your prospect clients. It's very important that you use positive language as well. You are more likely to achieve positive outcomes when you use positive rather than negative language. Positive language is helpful and encouraging because it suggests alternatives and offers solutions to problems. Now, it is a language that stresses positive actions and consequences. What is a good example for this? Let's say you are negotiating with a supplier who is not willing to budge on price. Your language should convey the desire for a win-win scenario because if you get to be very assertive or very aggressive during this process, then most likely you will not be able to have a good deal with your supplier. This is likely to make your supplier more willing to negotiate, perhaps on issues that other than prices, such as delivery costs or payment terms. Okay, then if you also refuse to budge and accuse them of being inflexible. Okay, so you always need to hold that positive language so that at the end of the day, it will be a win-win solution between you and the person you're communicating with. And at the same time, it will also be lighter on your end as a businessman or an entrepreneur if you always have good relationships with the people you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis in the business of context. Okay? It's also important that you use the I statements rather than the you statements. I statements rather than you statements often yield better results in verbal exchanges. Now, what is an example for this? Let's say you need an information about something. You should not say, I need more information to make a decision, or you should say, I need more information to make a decision because it sounds better than saying, you need to give me these pieces of information before I can make a decision. Why is it so? Because the I statement sounds better when you imply that you are actually saying what you need rather than telling someone what they should do. Okay? Remember that in a communication or in a business setting, we need to communicate effectively. And in this example, the best way for us to communicate effectively is by straightforwardly mentioning what we truly need. Okay? Through that, the people will also know how to respond or react or address our needs. Okay? Let's also have a good distinction between assertiveness and aggression. Assertiveness, often through the use of I statements, is stating what you plan to do. Instead of coming across as hostile, you are making a statement about something you feel or perceive. That's assertiveness. On one hand, when we talk about aggression, this one is completely different and is usually perceived as hostile or unfriendly behavior. It often uses the word you. People can become unhappy when you tell them what to do. For example, if you sound authoritative already, okay, when you appear to be a dictator in the business setting, that's not a good quality. Okay, even when talking to employees, it is wise to soften language when asking them to perform tasks, as they are likely to respond better to requests than orders. That's true. Okay, not at all times that you have to sound authoritative with the word choice. Sometimes, as a good leader, you also need to be lighter so that your staff or your employees will also feel the same. Consistent assertiveness shows others that you're confident and open to suggestion. Okay, when you assert your ideas, that means it doesn't mean that you are pushing for the acceptance, for the total acceptance of your ideas. Assertiveness may also mean welcoming the recommendations or suggestions of the people you are dealing with. Okay, your speaking style also matters in the business setting. Speaking style means the tone, the pitch, accent, volume, and pace of your voice. The same sentence can be conveyed and understood in entirely different ways based on how it is said. People you speak to can be motivated by a positive speaking style, just as a negative style can put them off. For example, the word okay. For example, an employee of yours comes to you and then asks for permission or asks for your go signal about a certain thing. Instead of saying, okay, why not say, okay, that's great. So you add additional statement so that the word okay could be contextualized and that it could be comprehended as if it's a positive response. Okay, that's speaking style. You should also try to speak with a positive voice. Avoid monotonous responses because definitely that shows disinterest. Or also avoid talking too quickly or slowly because in a business world, information is very important. And so if you talk slowly or quickly, people might not have the grasp of the information you're trying to convey. It's also very vital that you know how to ask questions. Asking questions is not a weakness. Okay? Actually, it is a signal that you want to learn more and that you are being sure about the things that you have to do. The more you can find out about a person's needs, wants, interests, and situation, the easier it is to reach win-win outcomes. You learn more about people by asking them the right questions and by talking or taking the time to listen to their answers. Now, people also have the tendency to respond well when they feel their opinion is being sought genuinely by another person, particularly in a business situation where conversations can have important consequences for both parties. So when someone suggests or recommends something, you also need to show sincerity in the acceptance of this. Otherwise, people might feel insulted or undervalued. Okay? We also have different types of questions. Now, you can use the following types of questions in any business situation. First is the open question. These questions require a person to elaborate or explain, helping to build rapport and encouraging them to open up. Well-chosen open questions encourage responses to questions you might not have thought to ask. For example, you ask, what do you think about this one? Okay? So you're asking about the thoughts of that person. That person is highly expected to share his or her thoughts. That's an example of open questions because it's a question which can yield discussed answers. Okay? Second one are closed questions. So just to be very brief with this one, closed questions are those answerable by yes or no or maybe only. Okay? It doesn't need explanation anymore. Next one is probing questions. More targeted questions designed to develop a more specific understanding of the other party's view on a matter. We also call this one as somehow the follow-up question. Okay, it's the probing question if you are asking for more pieces of information or details. We also have the confirmation questions. It is used when you need to be sure the other party understands your message. For example, if you'd like to ask for affirmation or negation about something, okay, or simply a confirmation or confirmation or reaffirmation about things that we have just discussed. And lastly, we have summary confirmation questions, which are used to clarify your understanding of the other party's needs. For example, could I summarize what you just told me so I can check I've understood you? Or you said that you want a computer system that will allow you and your staff to complete their tasks in half the time and training for all your staff on using this new system. So this one is more of a summary or conclusive question. Okay? Or it could also be a follow-up question, but it is more on asking for a summary confirmation. Okay? Now, using questions in a conversation. Generally, you will have the most success when using a range of question types in a conversation. Why? Because if you use any or most of these questions, then most likely you are showing your curiosity. And your curiosity here will now invite more pieces of information and will also provide an opportunity for a healthier discussion. Okay? Using only open questions can result in digression, a conversation strain, of course, if it is purely open questions only. If there is no close-ended questions or closed questions, then most likely the people whom you are communicating with will just talk and talk with no ending. You see, you have to be very careful with that as well. Using only closed questions can also make it too easy for the answering party to say just yes or no. And it doesn't make any difference because once you say yes or no, it's there's something missing, it's lacking. So you need to provide also further details or discourses so that you could elaborate on the ideas you're trying to share if you are the speaker. Okay? Therefore, it is very important to use both types of questions for maximum success and engagement. There are also question styles which we always need to avoid. There are types of questions which do not lend themselves well to business situations. These include destructive questions. For example, so you're saying it's my fault, okay? Or we also have leading or manipulative questions. We'll have that done by tomorrow, right? Okay, so we need to avoid that one because by this statement alone, it seems you are signaling pressure. Okay. Third one, multiple questions at once. When will you want it? Or don't you want it? You can't get it anywhere else, can you? Okay. This may also invite confusions on the end of the listener. And the listener might also be confused as to which question needs to be answered first. Okay. Asking these kinds of questions does nothing for your credibility or your ability to negotiate effectively and efficiently. We also have listening effectively. It's one thing to ask good questions, it's another to really take on board the answers. Now, you can often be distracted by your own thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and so tend to hear what you want to hear, more usually what you expect to hear. So it's very important that you know how to listen effectively so that you can also know how to filter those that need to be listened at. Okay? You're often thinking about your next move or what you should say next, or you're trying to second guess where the other party might be leading you. To listen effectively, you need to suspend these internal thoughts and give your full attention to the speaker. Only then can you really hear what they are saying. Okay? Another one is active listening. Active listening, definitely, as what I mentioned a while ago, is the opposite for passive listening. Active listening means paying attention to the speaker, both the verbal and nonverbal cues. Again, you need to be very vigilant as well with these nonverbal cues because they signal message. For example, if you see them look down or appear uncomfortable in some way while saying, that's all I can tell you at the moment, you might deduce that they are withholding information. Okay? This type of active listening alerts you to the opportunity for a well-constructed, open, or probing question to gather the missing information. Now, if you're not listening actively, it can be easy to miss signs like this. And because you need to have active listening skills, you also need to pay attention. It's very important to make sure that you don't let your attention wander, most especially if it's an important matter being discussed. Important pieces of information can be missed if you are not alert and engaged, most especially in the business setting. This can lead to misunderstandings later on or possibly embarrassing rather situations where you appear to have forgotten something you have been told. So what if in the middle of your wonder thoughts, you suddenly were asked by one member of the team or your boss, let's say, and unfortunately, you did not hear clearly what that person shared because your thoughts were wandering. So it's very important that you have to have good attention skills as well, and it has to be sustained all throughout. Okay, you also need to confirm your understanding. Active listening should ultimately lead to a complete understanding of what another person has said. You do this by feeding back to them in your words, your understanding of what they have said. So it's very important that you also provide your feedback. An easy way to do this is to clarify, paraphrase, or summarize. Examples of a summary question in these cases include, so what you're saying is, so what you need from me is, so in summary, what we've agreed is, now in the business setting is also very important because not only the minutes can serve as a proof, but also you have there these types of questions, the confirmatory questions, because they allow you to confirm everything before you finally end your communication. Now, it is usually a good idea to check your understanding regularly during a conversation. You can paraphrase or summarize. Now, when the other party has provided a large chunk of information, so at the end of that party's communication, you can always butt in and try to summarize everything or paraphrase everything, most especially if large chunks of information are mentioned or presented. You can also do paraphrasing or summarization whenever something is unclear to you. Okay, you might not want to ask directly about a question or about something or a piece of information that you want to be clarified about, so you can do it by simply summarizing or paraphrasing. Or when moving to a new topic or area for discussion, and you can also do paraphrasing or summarizing once you want to close the communication already, usually at the end of the discussion. Clarification is also a useful tool when the other party seems to be asking for a lot of information. Now, if their questions are poorly structured, too broad, or ambiguous, you might give away too much information by answering them straight away. It's often a good idea to clarify a question before you answer it. Now, this is what I have been emphasizing from the start. If there are things which you are confused, or if there are things which you do not understand at all, asking questions can definitely help. In a business setting, if you will not ask questions, if you are an employee, you might be risking the performance or the services or even the bloodline of the company. So you have to be very careful. And if you're unsure about something, then it also matters that you know how to ask questions to your, let's say, boss or your higher ups. Now, if you're a boss and you want also to have a grasp of what's actually happening within the company, then you also need to ask questions. Ask your employees about their performance or their progress in their respective departments, so that you as the boss or the higher up will also have an idea of what's actually going on in your company. Okay? Now, this is just a parcel of this discussion because I am yet to discuss about how communication works for healthcare and education and even in social media. So we have just started with communication in the business setting. I hope I was able to emphasize the very importance of communication in the business world. Again, we need to inject in our minds that communication is here to aid us in our daily transactions. And if you want to prosper as an entrepreneur or a businessman, you need to have great communication skills because it gives you self-confidence. It allows you for better relationships with other people. So if you have questions, kindly post them in the open forum. Thank you very much for listening.